Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another weekly reading vlog, or possibly my Falls Boys reading vlog. I don't know what it's gonna be. Today has been an absolute shit day. It's like 2 p.m. now. I am currently waiting on a COVID test because my boss thinks that, well, she tested positive for COVID, and yeah, currently I am reading My Darling Duke by Stacey Reed. I am enjoying it. I have been reading a lot of historicals recently because they all like came through my library at the same time. I'm ready to like read something else. So I'm gonna read this, and then I'm probably going to read the Fallaway series and read Falls Boys, and I probably am gonna do that in this vlog. For right now, I'm going to wait for this COVID test to come through, and then we'll go from there. I'm playing video games right now. Like, that's kind of what I've been doing. I've just been like, everything that's gone wrong, I'm just like, okay, I need to like take a chill pill, relax, play some video games, like calm myself down, because it's just like I'm going through it and it doesn't feel good. So we will talk again sometime eventually. Okay, bye. We are at home still because even though I took an at-home test and got negative, my partner told his work that my boss tested positive because he has someone with a disability in his office, so he, you know, wanted to make sure that he wasn't putting that person at risk. We now have to go to our local convenience store to get a test at 1, but I ended up finishing My Darling Duke last night, or this morning, and I really liked it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. And now I'm going to start Bully, which is the first book in the Fallaway series. I've read this previously and I don't really remember anything. All I remember is like racing. So I have a feeling this is going to be a lot like the OG Bully romances that are just kind of boring. So hopefully the cars can redeem it for me, but I will update you at the 50% mark or when I have some thoughts. I am 25% of the way through, and I forgot how annoying these characters are. So even my past self left notes, and every time I read them I'm like, yep, smart girl, I agree. So Tate's best friend just found out that her boyfriend of 2 years cheated on her, and she found out because Jared, the hero, drove her to the racetrack where her boyfriend was racing, and she saw him on the arm with another girl. And rather than console her friend about the fact that she just found out her relationship of 2 years was a lie, she is grilling her friend about why she trusted Jared. So I am like 70% of the way through Bully, and I think it's going to scrape a 3-star, but honestly, there was a point where I thought that I was just gonna end up DNFing because it just is not great, and I'm a little disappointed because like I love Penelope Douglas, and like I know that this was like a first book and all that, but it just is very not fun to read. The heroine is just really unlikable. Like, she's so selfish. I should be able to finish it today and then move on to the next one, and I have heard that it gets better. Hopefully I'll be able to finish it. I don't know if I'll reread their book when they're adults, because it ends in like a, I think it ends in like a happy for now, and then we have them as like a marriage in trouble, I think, but I don't really love them. Like, I don't like the heroine. I think she's super annoying and selfish, and then I also don't really like the hero. There's been some like swoony moments, but mostly I don't really think he's anything special. I'm gonna go to work now. Hopefully I'm going to finish, and then we will move on to the next one. I don't know what it's called, but we'll see. Oh, also, obviously, I'm negative for COVID, so. Okay, so I finished Bully, and as expected, I gave it 3 stars that I gave it last time. I didn't love it. Like, there's a lot of girl hate, there's a lot of just like unnecessary shit, and it's just kind of your stereotypical like bully romance. So I did end up giving it 3 stars, but now I'm moving on to Until You, which I have not read. I didn't realize that there are several stories of the same couple, of Tate and Jared, and this is 1.5, but it's like not a novella. It's almost 400 pages. So I don't usually love stories that follow the couple after they're together. It's from Jared's point of view, and it's, the author's note said it's not a retelling of Bully. So I don't know what it's about, because I know that like the 3rd book or something, their other book is in the future after they've been married or something and they separate. I don't know. Let's find out, I guess. Okay, stereotypical case of Ashley just not knowing how to read, apparently. This is set at the same time as Bully. Like, I read some reviews and they said, like, it doesn't feel like the same story. So, fingers crossed, I guess. I slept like absolute shit last night. Not feeling great. Yesterday I finished Until You. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I actually liked it a lot more than Bully, and I would almost say that if you want to get into this series and you are okay with skipping books, I would recommend that you pick this one up first and then move on with the series, because there's the same scenes with actually more scenes and more plot things in it. Like, there are things in this that are revealed that wasn't in the first one, and I'm wondering if this was written out of publication order. I don't know, I haven't looked at the dates or anything, but there's definitely more, and Jared is a much less annoying person to be in the head of, and there's a lot more interesting stuff going on with him. He's an only child from a single mother. His mother was an alcoholic. His father he hadn't seen since he was 2. And then there is this summer that he goes and spends with his dad when he is like 10, where he discovers another brother. That brother is being abused by their father. And so the 3 months or so that he spends with his dad, he's being abused. His dad is making him run drugs and do other illegal things. And also he's witnessing his brother being sexually abused by his dad's friends. There's more explanation into that, and there's more scenes between Tate and Jared that weren't in the first one. I also spoiled myself for something later in the series, but I started Rival, which is the 3rd book, and this is Maddox's book, and it is actually a step-brother romance. So it's Maddox's stepsister, Fallon. I'm about 10% in, and so far all we know is that Fallon's mother married Maddox's dad. Fallon and Maddox had like a hate relationship because Maddox didn't like, you know, the stereotypical didn't like that her skank mom was taking over his family, and then she gets sent off to boarding school, and she's now come back after Maddox and them have graduated, and I think she's graduated as well. She's kind of had a run-in with Tate, and I think they're gonna become friends. And then the part that I left off on, she is like having an encounter with Maddox, and I think there's something that went down between them that is kind of like traumatic, but he doesn't know that it's traumatic because she's acting very scared of him and he doesn't know why. So I think this vlog is probably going to be pretty long because I still have several books left. So if I have thoughts at the 50 to 75% mark, I'll update you. But if not, I'll just come update you when I have finished the book. Okay, I'm gonna give you an update while I am thinking about what I'm gonna eat. So I ended up finishing Rival. I gave it 3 stars. I was really enjoying this until the end. There's basically just like them fighting back and forth and like hooking up and then leaving and then hooking up and then leaving, and then something really dumb happens at the very end that gets them like an HEA, and I don't like it. Don't like how it happened. the excuse for why it happened was dumb. And then I updated my Goodreads star rating for Bully down to 2 stars. Because like the more I sit here and think about it, like there wasn't really any part of it that I enjoyed. And if I'm giving Rival 3 stars, then Bully really needs to have 2 stars because I liked it more. I liked Rival more. Jackson is the one who is next, and he is Jared's brother, and he has been playing a bigger role in the story than the first one even told us about. Like, it's very odd to me how this series is written, how much the first one just excluded, and I'm pretty excited. Like, they've had some interesting chemistry. Jackson is an interesting character. He has a lot of like trauma and backstory that I'm interested in seeing explored, and I'm interested in how that's gonna go. That's like the word of the day, is interested, I guess. He's very into her. Like, he sees her and immediately he's like, I want her. And she has a boyfriend, and he has some very antagonistic moments with her boyfriend, and rather than get upset that Jackson is provoking her boyfriend, she's upset at her boyfriend whenever he responds to Jackson. So I'm very interested in how their story is going to go, but I kind of need a breather. I might pick up a fantasy book and then come back to this one because it's just not Penelope Douglas that I love. Like, my experience with Penelope Douglas is that I read Punk 57, which I loved. Then I read Birthday Girl, which is like one of my favorite romances of all time. And then I went and read the Devil's Night series, which I absolutely loved. And then I read Bully, and it was just kind of okay. And now, like, I'm coming back to the series, and it's just kind of okay. Like, it's not what I come to expect from Penelope. I am interested in Jackson's story, so I'm hoping it'll redeem the whole series for me. And then I have Jackson's story, then I have the other book that follows Tate and whatever, like the Marriage in Trouble or whatever down the line, their second chance. And then I have this other person that is a spoiler. Their book is the last one. And then I have Falls Boys, which I'm excited for because a lot of people who haven't even been liking Penelope's new releases are enjoying this one. So last night I finished Falling Away or whatever, the book that is Jackson and Casey's book, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. It was a super close 5-star. I was loving this book until the ending. It had like a very after school special feeling, and I just didn't really enjoy it. So this is basically about Jackson, Jared's brother, half-brother, and Casey, who is Tate's best friend. In the beginning of the book, Casey is back in town after having to serve community service, and she is back serving community service at her school by tutoring some kids, and she ends up running into Jax, who lives next door in Jared's house, and she's staying in Tate's house. So they end up colliding because he's working at the lacrosse. He's like working with the lacrosse team. He's already graduated at this point and everything. And so they just keep running into each other, and they had a history. He very much pined over her in high school. She didn't really give him the time of day. Like, she noticed him, but she felt like he was the bad boy and she had to keep up this image, so she never really gave him the time of day. Her mother has basically disowned her, doesn't want her around because it'll look bad for her image, and so Casey is feeling a little bit of freedom there, and Jax is running criminal-esque enterprise in town. He's working with some criminals. He is running the Loop, which is like the racetrack in the area, and they are dealing with a lot of their own traumas separately. You're dealing very heavily with sexual and parental abuse in this, especially with Jax, but Casey has some experience with parental abuse as well. Her sister died when she was younger, and her father was mentally unwell, and they forced her to take on the identity of her sister because she because that like made her father not spiral out, and so she's dealing with that, and her mother hits her when she feels like she is disobeying her, even as a 20-year-old woman. So you're dealing with quite a lot of heavy stuff in here. I think this was the first indication that I've had in this series of any darkness in Penelope Douglas's writing. They are a great couple that I think speaks well to people dealing with their own trauma and trying to make a relationship work with your own trauma going on. I am not going to end up reading Aflame because, like, to be honest, I don't really like Jared and Tate, and I'm not interested in reading their second chance. And then the last book in the series that I was telling you about is actually like an introduction to the Hellbent series, and it's not a love story, it's their kids, and it like reintroduces us to the characters, which I don't really need because I've been up close and personal with them for a week now. So I'm now going to start Falls Boys, and we will talk I'm probably gonna update you on this one a little bit more than I did on the other ones, but I'll talk to you when I have something interesting to say. I am 33% of the way through Falls Boys, and this book starts off wild. We're following Arrow and Hawk, and Hawk is the child of Jax and Juliet. In the beginning of the book, Arrow is like the wrong side of the track. She lives in Weston, which is like a little bit it's on the outskirts of Falls something, the town that the Fallway series is in, and their town is like the richer town, and Weston is like on the other side of the tracks deal. Her mother is not really concerned with like taking care of her children, and she has her younger sister and then her younger brother who's like a toddler. She's responsible for taking care of her siblings, and in the beginning of the book we see her working with a gang in Weston. She was brought into the gang by guys that she had gone into foster care with when she was younger. One of the, like, I guess kind of a leader of the gang, or like another member, has her run drugs, collect payments and stuff like that. So she is going to collect payments for rent from local businesses, and then she ends up getting accosted by the police, and they take her money away. And one of the things that they told her before she left was like, don't come back empty-handed, or you're gonna have to make your keep another way. She just turned 18, so, you know, they mean that by like being a sex worker basically. So she decides that she's going to go to Falls. I'm just gonna call it Falls because I can't remember what it's called. She's gonna go to Falls, and she's going to find the kids that owe her money in Falls for various things and get the money that way. So she goes to this bar that is in the middle of Falls, and she sees Trent, like Jared, Jackson, and Maddox's kids there, and Jared's daughter owes her money for a cell phone. And so she basically starts a fight, and Arrow kicks her out, makes her leave, and then she steals his wallet and ends up going to his house to break in to get stuff from his house and to steal stuff. And he figures out that she's trying to steal stuff. She goes there, catches him, and in the midst they end up having to go on the run from the cops and from Green Street, which is the name of the gang from Weston. So they are now having to hide away in this bunker, and it's very interesting. Like right off the bat, it starts out very, very intense. Like it's go, go, go from the very beginning. We're kind of starting to slow down now. They're at the Loop, which is the racetrack, and there's some, they definitely don't get along. Arrow is very much like taking risks and doing not necessarily the smartest things to get what she needs to provide for her family. She will quite literally do anything. She'll steal people's purses right out from under them. She'll pickpocket, like she doesn't care. She will do what she needs to do. And she doesn't always make the safest decisions. And Hawk is very much like someone that grew up with money, and so he doesn't really understand where she's coming from. He feels like she's committing these crimes, but she doesn't really need to. He doesn't really get why she's taking all of these risks. Like, he knows that she's trying to protect her family, but he doesn't necessarily think that she's going about it the best way. But he feels compelled to take care of her, and he's worried about what's going to happen to her if he turns himself in, because he knows, like, he will be fine, and she won't necessarily have the support system behind her to get her out of this situation. So they are sort of forced together. They're working together, and he has this like intense surveillance system in the bunker, and so they decide that in order for them to move forward, they need to know what Green Street, the gang, knows. And one of the leaders of Green Street, or the leader of Green Street, is a cop, and so they end up putting a camera in Weston's like headquarters, I guess, or in Green Street's like headquarters or bar or something like that, and they're gonna surveil them and see what the news is. But they definitely have like this tension between them, because Arrow just thinks that he's this little privileged boy, and Hawk doesn't really understand her and why she does the things that she does. He thinks that she takes risks for no reason, and that she just doesn't seem to care, and that she's going to get them in trouble. And it's a pretty interesting dynamic. Hawk is a virgin, and he has already talked pretty openly about his previous relationships with women. Neither of them are in high school, but a lot of the high school relationships that he had ended because he was now willing to take that next step with his girlfriends, and they left him with kind of complex about him and his unwillingness to have sex and all of that. He's looking for this really deep connection that he has sort of pictured in his head his whole life, and he's waiting for the person that he feels that way. And so he doesn't really seem to have the same like sexual drive as the guys that we've seen in the series so far. All of the guys are sort of always hooking up with women, and they're always like checking women out and talking about that, and it's just not something that we've seen from him. He hasn't even really noticed Arrow sexually. Like, he hasn't even thought about her or had any thoughts about her. And he has this ex-girlfriend who I guess he just recently dumped, and she's feeling hurt, and she's trying to get back at him. And there's a scene where she posts a video online of her grinding on another guy in an attempt to make him jealous, and he doesn't know what he feels. He doesn't know if he feels jealousy or if he just feels like there's something wrong with him, and that is kind of exemplifying or exacerbating his feelings of wrongness. So I'm sure that's going to play a large part. We haven't necessarily gotten the idea that Arrow is a particularly sexual person either, but I'm sure that's eventually going to come into play. This is a pretty long book. It is 486 pages, and I'm 155 pages in, and like I said, it's just been nonstop, like very fun. I'm definitely enjoying it, and I can see why people would be enjoying this over the other things that Penelope Douglas has been coming out with recently. A lot of people have been complaining that their books seem pretty drawn out and overly long for no reason. And this one just feels very intentional. Like, everything that's happening just feels very intentional, and I can see that it's very well plotted and very well rooted in the story. It makes me really honestly excited to reread the Devil's Night series, because it's just one of my favorites. And I will say the writing and the things so far like are just perfect example of the way that their writing has changed as the years have gone on. Like, the writing is so succinct and so good, and it's just way better than the Fallaway series. I think the problem that the Fallaway series had was that I don't think they necessarily knew, at least in the first book, if they were going to get another, like, if they were going to continue the series and where they wanted the series to go. And so it just felt a little bit disjointed. I've spoken ad nauseum about the first book and how it fit into the rest of the series, but it just felt like they didn't quite know what they wanted it to look like, and they definitely got into that vibe towards the end, but the rest of the series definitely suffered for that. I am enjoying seeing the difference between Penn's writing back then to now. I think they've come such a long way. But I've been talking for way too long. I will update you at the 50% mark, and then yeah. So I finished Falls Boys, and I didn't update you at the like 50 or 75% mark just because I didn't feel like I had anything revolutionary to say, but I did end up giving it 4 stars. I think this was fantastic, and I really enjoyed Hawk. I think he's a very different hero than we usually get from Penn, and I think that they did a fantastic job with his character. I think that Arrow and Hawk matched each other perfectly. Arrow really understood and saw his vulnerabilities and matched him in that perfect way, and Hawk really appreciated Arrow for who she was and saw her protective nature and didn't just think that she was some rebellious teenage girl. And I think that it just was so good. I'm very interested in continuing. I think with the series, I think that Penn introduced a lot of very interesting plot lines. There was the Green Street versus Ballstown plotline, which was very interesting, and there's some that wasn't really wrapped up, and there's also some legends, very Devil's Night-esque, that was introduced as well, that comes into play. And I think that this just feels very much like old Penn, and I'm excited to see where they go from here with the rest of the series. I think they confirmed there's going to be 6 books in the series, and I'm just very excited. I think this revitalized my reading for Penn. I haven't read Tristic's Venom yet because I've been kind of concerned. Hawk is probably my favorite Penn, my second favorite Penn hero after Pike. So I just think that they did a fantastic job with this book, and I'm really impressed. I think if you are interested in reading Falls Boys, you definitely can do it without reading the Fallaway series, or if you have read it, you don't need to reread it. I think that there is enough explanation into who everybody is that it doesn't feel too confusing if you don't know who everybody is. The parents are much more involved than in most like new adult stories, and I find that like most authors, when they write like next generation stories, they tend to make their parents suck, which sucks because we just spent the whole series falling in love with them and liking them as characters, so it feels weird to then use them, make them bad characters to make your characters have some sort of backstory. But I definitely don't think that was the case here. Reading the Fallaway series and then going into this, like, I definitely felt like they were the same characters that I enjoyed from the Fallaway series, but just done better. I can see how Penelope Douglas's writing has changed. I'm not upset that I read the Fallaway series because I did enjoy several of the books, but I don't think that they were like peak Penelope Douglas. And I think if I had had the nostalgia of maybe reading them a couple of years ago, maybe I would have enjoyed them a little bit more. But I think because I have like the new Penelope Douglas writing, I'm a little bit spoiled. So I'm definitely happy that I read the series because I did read some great stories. That is it for this video. Leave your comments down below. If you have read the series, if you read Falls Boys, let me know. Other than that, if you don't have anything to say, leave a pink or black heart emoji down in the comments. I will catch you guys in my next one. Thanks so much for watching.